Yo, 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 what's going on? It's David back here, week 2 of our fantasy football league with SFGC. I got some good news, some bad news, some a little upsetting things for a few of our league mates, me, a couple other people. Just gonna go over everything. This is the second week, second episode. I'm gonna try to keep this one a little bit shorter, but I'm gonna hit all the main points. September 18th, I'm recording this on Wednesday. All the matchups have finished. The waivers have went through. It's an interesting week. Today I got the trophy with me. I'm the champ from last year, as you guys know. So I'm going to be keeping this and bringing it every time I record because, there's going to be weeks like this week where I take an L. But I want to remember that I'm still the champ. It don't matter if I take an L. I got the ultimate W. It's a trophy right in front of me. So this week we got... from first to worst, David and Dennis both last week were in the top 3 of scoring teams, did really, really good. They were the 2 ones that met in the finals last year, me and Dennis, and we went from being on the highest of highs, the top of tops, to, I guess, forgetting how to play fantasy football. We both scored less than 100 points. I scored 97, Dennis scored 99, so we got to really step it up. We can't even get over that 100-point mark. I mean, if you want to know how embarrassing that is, that me and Dennis just absolutely suck at fantasy, our football suck, if you started a fantasy lineup of just Saints players, and there's not even that many of them, you had Derek Carr, Alvin Kamara, Jamal Williams, Rashid Shaheed, Chris Olave, Taysom Hill, Blake Groupie, and the Saints D. That's not even a full lineup. There's no third wide receiver, and there's no flex. It's literally just 1 quarterback, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, a tight end, kicker, and defense. If you would have started that lineup in week 2, you would have scored 116.82 fantasy points. And me and Dennis couldn't beat 100. The Saints themselves scored 116, and we couldn't even break 100. I mean, Dennis, maybe we should just draft all Saints players, and we'd be better off, So we got to really step it up. Me and Dennis, the losers of this week, we absolutely suck at fantasy football. Anyways, enough of that. Enough of our trash teams. I'll go over that in the matchups. Let's go jump into matchup by matchup. We'll go first to Rosty versus Dennis since they both sucked. Rosty, he still won. A win is a win. You can't complain. 102. So Rosty scored 102.84. Dennis scored 99.78. This recap was really, Dennis picked Drake London in the second round, pretty high in fantasy football, and Drake London could not do enough to help Dennis pull out this win. It was a 3-point game. It was Drake London versus the Eagles kicker Jake Elliott on Monday night. And I think London had to outscore him by 10 points. He scored a garbage time touchdown, but he fell short 3 points. 3 points, that's all Dennis needed to win, which puts Dennis down to 0-2. Let's go to Dennis's team, the bad. Rachaad White and Tank Dell. Man, Rachaad White stinks. He sucks. 2.8 points. He had 10 carries for 18 yards. That's 1.8 yards per carry. 1 reception on 1 target, 5 yards. 2.8 fantasy points is trash. Tank Dell, even worse, 1.8 fantasy points. Those guys hitting that low of a mark is not good at all, and that's really what cost Dennis the win. I mean, if one of those guys score average 5-7 fantasy points, Dennis wins, but they both score less than 3 points. That's really, really bad. The good on Dennis's team, he did have Breece Hall, but the backup actually scored 2 touchdowns. I forget his name, Allen, something Braylon Allen or something like that. That dude, that's the backup running back for the Jets. He scored 2 touchdowns, so Breece Hall could have had a much bigger game. He got robbed by the backup. But in reality, the biggest good thing on Dennis's team so far, his best draft pick, is Brandon Aubrey, who scored 17 fantasy points again. In 2 weeks, he scored 21 fantasy points and 17 fantasy points. I'm sure that's probably the most by most points by any player on Dennis's team through 2 weeks. Steal of the draft? I don't know. That's a hint for later on in the show. I will be talking about so far who is the draft steals in our league. Now let's go on to Rosty's side of the ball. He barely gets out, but out with a dub, but a dub is a dub. He still is 2-0 on the season, better than most of you, so you can't complain. Rosty's bad. I mean, Laporta, Hill, and Mahomes. That's really the big three. Tyreek Hill, 5 points. Sam Laporta, 2.3 points. And, Patrick Mahomes, 12.94. That's all the bad. That's the bad on his team. Laporta did not show up, 2.3 points. Everyone thought he was the best tight end. He sucked. Jameson Williams is looking like he's taking a big part in that lineup. Amon-Ra came back. I mean, that whole offense played pretty decently. Amon-Ra had a big game. David Montgomery had a touchdown, pretty big game, fantasy points. Jahmyr Gibbs had a pretty good game. Just Sam Laporta isn't getting it. I mean, this guy's looking like a touchdown or a bust, and so far he's not scoring the touchdowns. Tyreek Hill, he had Tua injured. He only scored 5 fantasy points, but I think that was just a fluke game against Buffalo. Devon Achane got all the work. I think he'll be fine with a when another quarterback comes into here without Tua, he's really, his only option is to throw it to his best player, and that's Tyreek Hill. Dude's so fast, you just chuck up the ball, and Tyreek Hill's going to be fine. But Patrick Mahomes, 12.94. That's not good. Rosty was complaining in the group chat. We know, but he should be fine. Isaiah Pacheco got injured. I don't think there's a running back that's going to step up too much. They're signing Kareem Hunt, but still, I think it's going to be the Patrick Mahomes show now. I think he's going to start throwing the ball, and really their run game is going to be screen passes to the running backs, screen passes to wide receivers, slant passes. I think we'll see a lot more Travis Kelce, a lot more Rashee Rice hitting those slants. That's going to be their running game. So Mahomes, he should be doing a lot better after Pacheco's injury. The good. I want to apologize to Rosty about last week's comments. I am an idiot. I said his team sucks because he only has 3 running backs on his roster, Derrick Henry, James Conner, and Devin Singletary. And apparently, that's all he needs is those 3 running backs. Derrick Henry, 16 points. James Conner, 18.9 points. Singletary, 14 points. Each of those running backs scored 15 fantasy points. Well, Singletary had 14. But each of those running backs did what they needed to do. They gave Rosty the dub because they outplayed Dennis's running back. So props to you, Rosty. I guess he's a good manager, knows how to manage his team. I guess those running backs really are all he needs. I mean, I would watch out. I'd still probably try to get some more, which he did. He picked up some running backs. So that was the good on Rosty's team. Let's go to their bench. Dennis. He had Najee Harris. He had Demarcus Robinson. If he started Najee over Rachaad White or Demarcus Robinson over Tank Dell, he would have won his matchup. Those 2 start-sit decisions that he missed, either or he could have started and he would have won. Najee scored 7.9, Demarcus Robinson 6. I mean, his bench didn't really do too good, but those 2 players, if he started them, he would have won, which just hurts you as a manager. Other than that, we see Dennis changing up his bench every week, picking up players, dropping players. None of them are doing too hot. Dude's freaking out that his team sucks, so yeah, what can you do? Rosty, I'll say, this is when you know you're a good manager. You win by 3 points, and you started the perfect lineup. I mean, 100% perfect. There was nothing he could have changed that would have gave him extra points. He started the best thing other than waiver wires. Perfect lineup, I don't know if it's because his bench sucks or his starting lineup's OP, but he had 100% accuracy. I'd probably say it's because his bench sucks because, I mean, dude only scored 102 points, and that's his perfect lineup. I don't think his roster's that OP, but he is 2-0, so Rosty, congrats to you starting the perfect lineup, getting that dub. That's all you got to do. Scrap it out week by week, make it to the playoffs, and then, it's luck from there. Dude really knows how to play fantasy. All right, moving on next to Team T versus Team Marvin's Room. Taras versus Kiwi. Taras 151.52 points to Kiwi's 126.50 points. Really, this matchup was about 2 things. Number 1 is the star rookie wide receiver face-off. Taras drafts Malik Neighbors. Kiwi drafts Marvin Harrison. I mean, Malik Neighbors was a few rounds later, but Malik Neighbors has looked better than Marvin Harrison so far after week 1. And in this face-off, Neighbors did take the dub. Neighbors' team took the dub. In real life, the Giants lost, but at least on Taras's fantasy team, they took the dub. Also, they had a fantasy face-off of the Detroit Lions running backs. Taras started Jahmyr Gibbs. Kiwi started Montgomery. I think Kiwi only started Montgomery because he was playing against Gibbs. Monty scored 0.9 points more. Still couldn't get the dub. Jahmyr Gibbs' team took the dub, unlike the Lions, who got beat by the Bucs. Let's go, Bucs! So, going over to the standouts on their teams. Kiwi, the bad. Kiwi. He had Michael Pittman in his lineup. Dude is not looking good, and sad to say because I got Anthony Richardson on my team. That team cannot pass the ball. 7 targets, 3 catches, 21 yards, 3.6 points is not good. Not good at all. As well as C.J. Stroud. They felt like they were killing the Bears, but he just couldn't score touchdowns. 14.3 points for a quarterback is not it. That's why you need rushing from a fantasy quarterback for him to be good. But the biggest bad thing was really Pittman because he did have so many better wide receiver studs on his bench. The good thing, Marvin Harrison. Marvin Harrison went off. In like the first half, he had 4 catches. This is his stat line he ended the game with. 4 catches, 130 yards, and 2 touchdowns. That's such a crazy stat line. I mean, dude was looking like Marvin Harrison Sr. out there. Dude was going off. Broken plays. He was getting open. Kyler was chucking him the ball. Deep balls. Dude, Superman dives into the end zone with the ball to score the touchdown. That's like a Randy Moss stat line. Only 4 catches, 130 yards, and 2 touchdowns. I mean, that is insane. That's so many yards, 2 touchdowns. I mean, 50% of his catches were touchdowns, which is crazy. That's something Randy Moss would do in his day. He doesn't need a lot of catches, but he'll take them to the house. So, I bet Kiwi's happy. Dude goes from scoring like 1 or 2 fantasy points to 27. That's a crazy good game. Taras. We'll go to Taras's team. The bad. Jamar Chase. What is going on with Jamar Chase? Like, this game, I understand the first week he scored 9.2 points. But this game, he scores 5.5 fantasy points. Like, Zamir White almost scored more than Jamar Chase. This guy right now, he doesn't have T. Higgins. Joe Burrow played 1 game. Jamar Chase played 1 game. They're playing their second game. They should ramp up a little bit. Jamar Chase practiced. He should ramp up a little bit. 5 targets, 4 catches for 35 yards in a game that you lose to the Chiefs. I mean, if you're losing the game, what are you going to do, Joe Burrow? Target Jamar Chase. Why is I think their tight end had more receptions. Their tight end did better than, their tight end had 7 catches for 91 yards. Jamar Chase only has 4 catches. You got to give Jamar Chase more targets than that. I don't know what's going on with him. We'll see. But Taras is okay because the good on his team was actually his pass catchers. Other than Jamar Chase, he had Nico Collins, Malik Neighbors, Devontae Adams, George Kittle. All those players had over 75 yards and a touchdown. And actually, they all had over 100 yards other than Kittle. Devontae Adams had 9 receptions, 110 yards and a touchdown. Neighbors had 10 receptions, 127 yards, a touchdown. Kittle had 7 receptions, 76 yards and a touchdown. Nico Collins, 8 receptions, 135 yards and a touchdown. This week, drafting the wide receivers high really paid off for Taras. That's really what took his team to victory. Once you have 20 points from all 4 of those players, it's really hard to overcome for Kiwi. Okay, the bench. Taras, he had a good thing. One of his backup running backs finally did good. Chuba Hubbard, 9.6 points. And they're getting an upgrade at quarterback with Andy Dalton. I think Taras finally got his RB2 on his bench. Other than that, no one really performed. But at least he got 1 player. That's all he needs, 1 player to put into that RB2 slot over Zamir White. And Kiwi. Kiwi had a good bench. But he was a bad manager because he sat all these players. Zay Flowers, Jackson Smith-Njigba, and Zach Charbonnet. 18 points, 17 points, 15 points. That's a wide receiver, and a running back. Considering he had Michael Pittman, who scored 3 points, and he had Zay Flowers and Jackson Smith-Njigba, both score over 17 fantasy points. That's just bad managing. He had to start one of those guys, but you can't expect that with Michael Pittman. We'll see what Kiwi does next week. It'll be exciting. Moving on, next matchup. Dan versus Tony. Dan's team, which is, let me look at his team name. I'm on top of the world. 190.54 fantasy points to the Kansas City Chiefs. Tony had 146.16 fantasy points. That 190 fantasy points, I mean, dude's team was going off since Thursday night with Devon Achane, who went crazy. And then he had, Kyler. Amon-Ra finally hit his stride. Alvin Kamara, the big game. You see his picture behind me. I'll get into that when I'm talking about the good players on Dan's lineup. But Dan had the third highest score by a team ever since we've started playing on Sleeper. I think that's only 2 years, maybe 3 years. So now he holds 4 of the top 10 spots of most points scored in 1 week. This week 2 was the third highest scoring ever. The other ones was Kiwi, I believe, was first, and Tony was second. 190 is third. Now let's go to their standouts. We'll go to Tony first because he lost. Tony the bad, Josh Allen, and Amari Cooper. I mean, Josh Allen, 9.76 points is definitely bad, but you can't really clown on it too much because he had James Cook, who had the 3 touchdowns. He had a receiving touchdown, which Josh Allen threw, and then James Cook had 2 rushing touchdowns. So if you give that work to Josh Allen, James Cook looks mediocre. And, 28 points from one, 9.76 points from the other isn't too bad for a quarterback, running back. You just expect your quarterback to have 28, but it ended up his running back had that, because he stole the rushing work from Josh Allen. I don't think we'll see that the rest of the season. Josh Allen's getting all the rushing work. The Miami Dolphins just couldn't stop James Cook, so I think he'll be fine. But Amari Cooper is where the problem is. Another game where he had a lot of targets, little receptions. 8 targets, 3 receptions. I believe in week 1 he had 9 targets and 2 receptions. And 11 yards, 2.6 points. Amari Cooper is not looking good. This is the second week in a row. Tony is really lucky that he drafted Chris Godwin because his wide receiver 2 would look like it sucks, but he has the best wide receiver 2. Because the good on Tony's team, like I already mentioned, James Cook had the 3 touchdown performance, 28 points. You expect a little bit more, but from 3 touchdowns, but it's okay. He still had a great fantasy day. And Chris Godwin, 8 targets, 7 receptions, 117 yards, and a touchdown. Since moving into the slot, Chris Godwin is outstanding for the Bucs. He's doing great, and we just expect more and more. He's actually the wide receiver 1 on the season. Dude is going crazy. There's no way Tony's not starting him. Dude's going to carry Tony's team unless Mike Evans steals the touchdowns. We'll see. But that Bucs offense is rolling. Chris Godwin must be feeling good. Tony must be feeling like a draft steal. Hint, hint. Dan, the bad, Mike Evans. Here's another battle of teammates at the same position. Tony had Chris Godwin, who did good. Dan had Mike Evans, who did bad. 5.7 fantasy points. And 5.7, it's not too bad for Mike Evans. You expect boom-bust games. But the big problem is he's playing against Chris Godwin, and Godwin had the boom game. Imagine if Mike Evans had the boom game. Dan's team would have been over 200 points. That would have been crazy. Other than that, he didn't really have much bad. His tight end got 5 points. I guess you could say that. But really, when you score 190 fantasy points, it's mostly all good. So let's go to the good. Here's where I want to spend some time. Alvin Kamara. Dude is such a beast. Dude is so good. I love this player so much. I want to talk a little bit about Alvin Kamara because dude had 43 fantasy points, 20 carries, 115 yards, 3 rushing touchdowns, and then 3 targets, 2 receptions, 65 yards. 2 catches, 65 yards is a crazy, and 1 more touchdown receiving. 4 touchdowns, 43 fantasy points. That's what Alvin Kamara do. Alvin Kamara, I feel like he's this underrated running back because he came in around the same time as CMC, and CMC's been so great. Todd Gurley's been so great. Jonathan Taylor's been so great. Saquon's so great. I feel like Alvin Kamara kind of flies under the radar as one of the greatest running backs of our generation. But dude does this every single year. 43 fantasy points. He always has that one big boom game where he just wins you your week, and then he's just solid. I don't know why we're still doubting him. Let me read you the stats of his whole career. He's played for what? 7 years now. 2024, he had the 43 points and 4 touchdowns. 2023, he had a game where he had 25 points and 2 touchdowns, but he had 2 of those games. He did that twice. 2022, he had a game where he had 38 fantasy points and 3 touchdowns. 2021, he had a game where he had 29 fantasy points, only 1 touchdown. But in that game, he had 11 targets, 10 receptions for 128 yards. That's wide receiver stats right there. 10 catches, 128 yards, not including what he did on the ground rushing. 2020, we all know his giant game, 54 fantasy points, 6 touchdowns on Christmas against the Vikings. He just had an amazing year overall. I want to stop at the year 2020, and I want to read you some of his stats from the year 2020 because this dude went crazy in 2020. In 2020, Alvin Kamara, week by week, he scored 21 fantasy points, 33, 38, 19, 15, 18, 20, 13, 31, 10 points, 5 points, then 18, 20. Sorry. He scored, let me start from the beginning. 21, 33, 38, 19, 15, 18, 20, 13, 31, 10, 5, 16, 18, 16, 54. He only had one game under 10 points. That was 5 points. And then he had, 4 or 5 games over 30 points. Dude went crazy in 2020. He was so good. And then back to 2019, he had 32 points. He had that game. He had 2 touchdowns, 10 targets, 9 catches, 92 yards. Another wide receiver stat line. 2018, he had 30-plus points and 3 touchdowns 3 different times in 2018. Dude was on a tear, and 2 of those games he scored over 37 fantasy points. And in 2017, his rookie year, he had 33 points and 2 touchdowns in a game. If you draft Alvin Kamara, you know there's going to be a week where he scores you 30-plus fantasy points and 3-plus touchdowns. I mean, dude does it every year. He is so good. I don't know why we sleep on Alvin Kamara. Dude is like one of the greatest. He is so good. I mean, I might be a little bit biased because I just love watching him play. I don't know why the Saints don't use him more because I already know. Alvin Kamara had this boom week. Next week, they're going to get on the 5-yard line, the 2-yard line, and you know who they're going to give the ball to? Taysom Hill. Taysom Hill's going to run in the touchdowns. They just do it always. Or Jamal Williams. The Saints love to do this. Alvin Kamara has a great game, and then they just forget about him and give someone else the ball. I mean, I don't know why they don't give their best player the ball more if this is what the guy can do for you. This was against the Dallas defense. They destroyed the Cowboys. I personally didn't think the Saints were like that. I thought the Cowboys would be better, but nope, I guess they're not. So, anyways, that was the good on Dan's team. That's what gave him the 190 points. When you get 43 points from your flex, that's like half of the score that I scored this week. Anyways, the bench. Dan, I mean, he had some pretty good bench pieces. Not really, because he had the perfect lineup, 190 points. And if you're scoring 190 points, pretty sure you had to start the perfect lineup. Tony. Once again, Tony has a crazy bench. If anyone needs to trade, I'd go to Tony. He has some good bench depth. He left a lot of points on the bench. 19 points from J.K. Dobbins, 16 points from Ramondre Stevenson, 22 points from Calvin Ridley. But it doesn't really matter this week because he played against Dan, who scored 190 points. Tony's perfect lineup would have only taken him to 172.6. But if anybody needs a backup piece, Tony's got some good ones. Although I do think he'll need to start Calvin Ridley instead of Amari Cooper, so he just has pretty decent backup running back. Next, and our final matchup will be, sadly, Vlad versus David. Team Putin versus the IR. I changed my team name to the IR because my team name had a curse on it. My team name was Mixon More Cups of Brown Rice. So it was Joe Mixon, DJ Moore, Cooper Kupp, AJ Brown, Roshy Rice, and like half of those players got injured this week. So change my name. I don't want that to be my name anymore. Anyways, the final score was 111.22 to 97.76. Lowest scoring team of the week, 97.76. Vlad, pretty good, 111.22, comes out with the dub. He's not 0-2, so that was pretty good. But before I start making any excuses, yes, I lost. I got to give Vlad his credit. A win is a win. And from the start, I mean, the very beginning of our matchup, I didn't really have a chance. Anthony Richardson looked like he sucked. Justin Jefferson was like the only player playing good on my team. And My team just couldn't do anything from the very beginning of the week, from Sunday 1 o'clock, and it was just downhill the whole time. And Vlad kept saying, David, you nervous yet? You nervous yet? I wasn't worried. I had Cooper Kupp until Cooper Kupp started playing. Then Vlad told me, he's like, dang, I'm a little bit worried about Cooper Kupp. But Cooper Kupp got injured. Then I started getting a little worried, and I came out with the L. Couldn't make it back. I had a slim chance at the end. Had Kyle Pitts versus Vlad's kicker, Younghoe Koo, and I was down by 6 points. So I needed my tight end to outscore his kicker by 6 points, and ended up his kicker outscored my tight end by 6 points. So that wasn't really fun. Anyway, going to my team, the bad. Anthony Richardson sucked. 9 fantasy points, 9.8, and he was like negative through more than half of the game. He only ended with 9 because he had a garbage time touchdown at the end. Threw 3 interceptions, didn't have a rushing touchdown. That was the sad thing, is he couldn't get his rushing game going against the Packers. Joe Mixon got injured. That was sad to see. Sunday night, I thought I had a chance if Joe Mixon put up a good performance. Dude gets hip tackled. They don't even throw a flag on the hip drop tackle against Joe Mixon. That was the most annoying thing, is that, yes, okay, it was a small injury. He's not going to be out for too many weeks. But it was a hip drop tackle. The NFL said they don't allow that anymore, and they don't even throw a flag on it when it was the most obvious thing. If you haven't seen it yet, go watch it. It was so annoying, that injury. Cooper Kupp busted. He only scored 5.7 fantasy points. He also got injured. I thought he was going to be a top 5, maybe top 3 wide receiver with Puka injured, but now Cooper Kupp gets injured. They haven't added him to the IR yet, but they said they're thinking about it. They're thinking about it, maybe not. So he's probably going to be injured, out for like 3 weeks, 4 weeks, somewhere around there. Probably will return right around the same time Puka comes back. But there goes Vlad's bold prediction of, I believe Vlad said Cooper Kupp will be a top 3 receiver. Not happening anymore. Kyle Pitts, he also sucked 3.5 fantasy points. I'm not too worried. I'll talk about it on my bench later. I had Brock Bowers. He was on the bench, and I could have started him over Kyle Pitts. So it's fine. I was the last team to draft the tight end anyways. And also the bad was every player that got injured on my team. Justin Jefferson left in like the 3rd or 4th quarter. He got like something with his hip or his quad or something like that. Isaiah Pacheco gets injured, goes on an IR, 6 to 8 weeks. He's out. That's my running back 1. That's a big blow. Good thing I traded for Brian Robinson. I know it's no Isaiah Pacheco, but it's at least something back. And A.J. Brown, dude, my 2nd wide receiver, literally the 9th pick of the draft, gets injured in practice. Like, are you serious? I didn't mention this, but that was Kiwi's team too. Kiwi had Evan Ingram. Dude got injured in pregame warmups. A.J. Brown got injured like Friday in practice. Good thing they said he wasn't going to play Monday night. They said that on Sunday so I could replace him. But seriously, A.J. Brown, are you kidding me? Another injury to my team. So, like, literally, Kiwi mentioned this. My top, I think it was almost every player of my first 5 draft picks. Number 1, Justin Jefferson. He got injured in the 3rd quarter, left the game. Number 2, A.J. Brown. Got injured Friday practice. Didn't even play. Number 3, Isaiah Pacheco. Got injured, is going to the IR. Didn't even play. Number 4, Cooper Kupp. Got injured, is going to miss a few weeks. Isn't going to play. Number 5, Joe Mixon. Got injured that game, going to miss a couple weeks. Like, every pick of my top 5 picks got injured. That's why my team is the IR. I'm naming that until they prove that they shouldn't be the IR. It's so sad that I had to drop some players that were on my IR to place my good players on IR. I was stashing Keaton Mitchell. Maybe he would have taken over the Ravens running back slot. Never mind, he's gone off my team. The good, really, there was one amazing player, Justin Jefferson. Even though he got injured, he still had a 97-yard touchdown from Sam Darnold. Dude's looking really good. Justin Jefferson's a beast. He's showing everyone why he's such a good wide receiver. You guys shouldn't have slept on him in the draft. I'm going to repeat it over and over again all season. Right now, he's the wide receiver 4 on the season behind Chris Godwin, Nico Collins, Jaden Reed, in that order. He's definitely going to go ahead of Jaden Reed. Nico Collins on fire. I forgot to mention that on Taras's team. Dude is looking so good. The wide receiver on that one on that team, really what's keeping C.J. Stroud good. And Chris Godwin's been on fire too. But right now, out of the top 8, top 10, however many drafted wide receivers, Justin Jefferson's looking the best. Wide receiver 4. He's looking good. He has, I think it's like 200 yards on the season so far through 2 games, which is looking real good. But that was pretty much it. That was the only good on my team. Vlad's team, the bad. Travis Kelce. I mean, I know I talked about him a little bit earlier, but 1.1 points is crazy. Like, Travis Kelce, what is going on? He only has 6 points through 2 weeks. He only has like 36 yards through 2 weeks. This is not Travis Kelce's normal. And I think it is a big part of it is they have been doing the run game a lot more. They were using Isaiah Pacheco a lot, and they're using Rosty Rice in Travis Kelce's role. He can't score them touchdowns, but like seriously, what's going on? I don't know. We'll have to see. Is he really falling off a cliff that fast? Is Travis Kelce like done as a tight end? I don't think so. Their running back Isaiah Pacheco got injured. I think it's going to give more to Travis Kelce. He still has that connection with Patrick Mahomes. So I think Travis Kelce should be fine. Vlad will wait a couple more weeks, and he should do pretty good. Everyone else's tight ends sucked anyways. Mine scored 3.5 points, so 1 point isn't too bad. It's just 2 point difference, 2.5 points. The good on Vlad's team, DK Metcalf went off. Dude, 24 points, 14 targets, 10 catches, 129 yards, and a touchdown. That touchdown, he was so wide open. He just ran between two defenders, and they stood there doing nothing. They felt like they were playing in the exact same zone. DK Metcalf just split the seam, ran down the sideline wide open. Geno Smith touchdown to him. Yeah, and it was a big bounce back week because I believe he didn't do too good week 1. He only scored 4 fantasy points. So DK Metcalf, that was pretty good. And the other big thing for Vlad is Jordan Mason. That's really good. Jordan Mason is a great Christian McCaffrey replacement. I know Christian McCaffrey injured, the #1 pick, but Mason is doing good. 21.7 points and 16.9 points with the first 2 weeks. Over 100 yards and a touchdown in each of the first 2 weeks. On the ground, plus a little bit of catching work. He is doing good replacing McCaffrey. This is good for Vlad because he has a good McCaffrey replacement these first weeks while McCaffrey's injured. But the only thing is, it's bad for Vlad because when McCaffrey comes back, they might do 50-50, slowly ease McCaffrey in. So we'll have to watch that. But so far, really good on Vlad's team. Jordan Mason helps him get the dub. Also, Tony Pollard. I don't want to talk about him too much because I don't like him. The bench, Vlad, just like who was it? Rosty, I believe it was. 100% accuracy. Oh, just like Dan also. 100% accuracy, perfect lineup. Nothing on his bench he could have changed. I was surprised he sat Aaron Jones after how much he liked him, but he decided to go with Tony Pollard, and it worked out because I think Tajay Spears got injured. So it was good. He sat the right players, started the right players. That was just a good overall manager, 111 points. I mean, when it's what is that, like a 15-point victory, you know, the right start-sit decisions can make the difference because my team, my bench, I had Brock Bowers on the bench, 14 points. Jaden Daniels scored 13, which is more than A-Rich's 9. Brian Robinson scored 14. My perfect lineup would have scored me 120 points, which would have been better than Vlad. So if I would have made the right start-sit decisions, I could have won. But Brock Bowers so far on my bench, he's a beast. 9 targets, 9 receptions, 98 yards. Dude is looking like a stud at tight end. So far, no touchdowns, but he's averaging over 11 and a half PPR fantasy points through 2 weeks. Dude's looking like a really good tight end, and to think I picked him up off the waivers, that's awesome. Okay, I'm running a little bit long here. Let's wrap it up. Trade alert! Trade alert. We got no trade yet this week. I'm sure we will by before the end of the week, before week 3, because there's some people, me and Dennis, who need starting players. We literally don't have someone to put into our lineups. We're really struggling. But the big trade alert is Breece Hall, the 3rd best drafted running back right now, probably the second best running back in fantasy, is on the trading block. Dennis moved him to the trading block. I know he had an offer from Tony. He had an offer from Kiwi. I shot him an offer, you know, trying to lowball him a little bit, see what he's thinking about Breece Hall. But I think he's playing it smart. He knows Breece Hall is a big name, and he's shopping around to see how much value he can get, really using other people's offers against them to increase the value. But this really is something that doesn't happen a lot. Breece Hall on the trading block. When a player like that goes on the trading block, you got to shoot him an offer and see what he's thinking. So Dennis is looking real scared. His team is looking real scared. Breece Hall, you wouldn't expect to see him on the trading block just after 2 weeks, especially after playing so good. I think he had 20 and 15 fantasy points. I mean, he's doing good. But Dennis's team just needs depth. All right. wrapping it up, the last segment this week is Draft Steal. I will be going to our draft results, looking over some players, and seeing who had at what player at what round was the best value of our draft so far through 2 weeks. So I'll go through, what is this, 3, 6, 7, 8 players. I have 8 players that are really good, and then my 9th player is my current draft steal. So number 1, I know Tony's going to complain that his players aren't the steals, but sorry, Tony, you don't have the draft steal. But J.K. Dobbins in round 15, I mean, he drafted him after a kicker, is such a steal. J.K. Dobbins through 2 weeks is looking great, looking amazing. 21 fantasy points, 19 fantasy points, over 130 rushing yards, and a touchdown in each of his first 2 games. He's looking real good. That's such a draft steal. But Tony, he's having those big plays. I would be worried, though, because they're still giving Gus Edwards a lot of carries. So that's kind of the only thing that's sketching me out. But that's a really good pick at round 15. That's a really big steal. He could be, if he ends up the season in top 8 running backs, top 12, he could easily be the biggest draft steal. I drafted Jameson Williams in round 15 also, right after, a few picks after J.K. Dobbins. Jameson Williams through 2 weeks, 21 points, 11 points. But he has 9 targets and 11 targets, so he's averaging 10 targets a game. He's looking really good. He's looking like the second best player on that Lions offense right now. He might even be looking like the best. He had a boom game and a good game. Better than Amon-Ra, better than Laporta. So he's looking like he's having a big role on Dennis's team. Next, Chris Godwin, the wide receiver 1 right now in round 10. He was drafted after guys like Ladd McConkey, Jaden Reed, Christian Kirk, George Pickens, Ridley, Tank Dell, T. Higgins. Chris Godwin is looking like such a draft steal. I don't even think any of us as Bucs fans were expecting Chris Godwin to look this good. Chris Godwin, round 10, such a steal. Next, James Conner, round 7. Sorry, Vlad. I think it's official. You made the wrong pick, drafting Aaron Jones. James Conner is looking so good. That Cardinals offense is looking so good. Even in the loss, James Conner scores 18 points. In the win, he scores 18 points. He's having a touchdown per game. He has receptions if they're winning. He has carries if they're winning. He has receptions if they're losing. James Conner just is game script proof that if he doesn't get injured, round 7 is such a steal for James Conner. Dennis's team, Brandon Aubrey, round 17. I know this is crazy for a kicker, but so far 21 points and 17 points through 2 weeks. He's averaging 19 half PPR points per game. That is a steal at kicker. Through 2 weeks, round 14. I mean, I know everyone's drafting their kicker, but I guess that was the first kicker off the board. But at that value, I would take that guy. To average that many fantasy points is crazy for a kicker. And I'm surprised Dennis still isn't winning his games. That's kind of crazy. Okay, next, Nico Collins. I know this is my highest round player from all of these steals, but dude's the wide receiver too, and he's just looking like a stud. He's only has 1 touchdown on the season, and his role is growing and growing. 14 fantasy points, 23 fantasy points. Everyone wasn't sure what would happen when Tank Dell was back, when they added Stephon Diggs, they added Joe Mixon. It's looking like Nico Collins is still that guy. He's C.J. Stroud's favorite player. He's looking like the best player on the field. He's making plays. They're looking like a good offense. Nico Collins in round 4 is a crazy steal. Also, Roshy Rice in round 8. I know a lot of people wanted to draft him. I drafted him. I mean, it's a light 13 points and 16 points. He's looking like a good wide receiver. He might be a high-end wide receiver too, but the fact that Isaiah Pacheco is injured, they're going to be throwing the ball more. Patrick Mahomes really likes Roshy Rice. He's doing better than Xavier Worthy. He's doing better than Travis Kelce. Hollywood Brown looks like he's injured out for the whole season. I mean, Roshy Rice is looking like a steal at round 8. And the last one, Tony Pollard, round 9. I don't want to talk about him. Like I said, I have to take the L on this one. Tony Pollard looks good so far through 2 games. 17 fantasy points, 12 fantasy points. He's getting carries, 16 and 17 rush attempts. He gets targets 4 and 6. We know he can do that. And especially Tajay Spears got injured. He's questionable. So if Tajay Spears is out, Tony Pollard is a huge steal in round 9. I know some of us are wishing we could have him on our teams. Tadas looking for a running back. Dennis looking for RB2. I'm looking for RB2. Tony Pollard's looking real good in round 9 right about now. But currently, my biggest draft steal so far through 2 weeks in 2024 is the running back from New Orleans Saints, Alvin Kamara. I got the guy behind me for a reason. Alvin Kamara, round 5, pick 7, is such a stud. He was drafted after Malik Nabers, Kenneth Walker, Jalen Waddle, Josh Allen, Brandon Ayuk, DK Metcalf, Travis Kelce, Sam Laporta, James Cook, Rashad White, Deebo Samuel, Nico Collins, Mike Evans, Cooper Kupp, Isaiah Pacheco, Josh Jacobs, Travis Etienne, Derrick Henry, Kyron Williams. He was drafted after all of those guys, and so far he's performing way better than all those dudes. If he continues to receive this kind of volume that he's been receiving, he's averaging 31.25 points per game. He is the RB1 by 15 points, and as of right now, I don't see it slowing down. The Saints are looking like a good offense. Alvin Kamara, they're giving him the ball. They're running the ball when they're winning. He's getting those rushing touchdowns. Alvin Kamara is a pass-catching back. When they need to, they can target them. So far, they blew out both their opponents, but Alvin Kamara still had 5 targets and 3 targets in both those games. He can still catch the ball. Imagine what happens when they're losing. Alvin Kamara is looking like the best draft pick. Round 5, pick 7. I think anyone would have Alvin Kamara in the first 3 rounds at how he's looking like right now. Dude is the RB1 on the season. To get him in round 5 is totally crazy. I know those other guys that I went over were crazy steals, but Alvin Kamara I think is the biggest steal, and that's it. Draft steal right now for me is Alvin Kamara. If you don't like it, I don't care. Drop in. Let's do this week in the group chat. Before week 3 finishes, before the start of week 3 on Sunday, I want everyone to drop their biggest draft steal so far. All right, week 2 is over. That's all we got for week 2. So far, we still have 2 undefeated teams, and we have 2 winless teams. The undefeated teams are on top of the world, Loki, Dan. He's undefeated, as well as Dunk Squad. Rosty is undefeated. The 2 winless teams, Marvin's Room, Kiwi is winless, 0 wins. Discount CMC, Dennis is winless. So we'll see. We'll keep an update. We'll keep an eye on it, how far into the season we can make it with a winless team and with an undefeated team. And then we'll keep track of how far those teams get. If they get into the playoffs, miss the playoffs, what happens to them. But that's it for week 2. Fantasy football sucks. Injuries are the worst. Just the worst. I don't like to talk about it. Hopefully I'll be back with a better attitude next week when my team gets a dub, even with some injured players. That's it. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you so much. Don't forget, drop who was your steal of the draft. I'll see you guys next week. Peace.